Welcome back to another Cyber Collective. As usual, I'm Elliot Cedar. I am with PAC8. I am now the executive coach for cybersecurity over here, as well as a solutions consultant. As always, with our sessions, I've brought in a subject matter expert. Today, it's Jason Murrell from who is an independent chair for the CSCAU, which is Cybersecurity Certification Australia. And from the MSP side of things, we've got Adam from ADITS. I will hand things over. I'll start with you, Jason, to do a bit of an introduction on your background and where you've come from.
Okay, yeah. So CyberAware, the product we built, was built specifically for small to medium-sized enterprises, mainly, really, to help businesses at that end. So it had a health check in there based upon, the Essential 8, NIST, and ISO 27001, but specifically for small business. And we now white label that, or we white labeled that pretty early on for MSPs and MSSPs to use as part of their solution. So unless you dug really deep in the DNS, you wouldn't know CyberAware was behind a lot of the MSPs who use that for their training and phishing solutions in market. And after that, went into 6 Clicks, which is a GRC platform, which was early days machine learning and AI, back a few years ago. Then CyberHive, and then I headed up Cyber, which, is it was funded mainly by government, by DISA, which is sort of coming to a natural conclusion currently. And currently now, as you mentioned off the top, Elliot, that the CSCAU is independent chair there and started MurFin Group, which is sort of to try and carry on the work that we were doing at Cyber and to sort of carry that forward. So in alignment with the cyber strategy at the moment to help deliver the outcomes there. So look at sovereign solution first and try and build up startups here and help the network here, and then look offshore to see where we might find some options to fill in any gaps.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think your credentials speak for itself, and one of the reasons why we had you on for this session today. Going back to how you sort of kicked off, I think that's how every cybersecurity person sort of gets into the industry, or at least back in the day. Accidentally. I know that's the same thing for me. I sort of fell into it as well, being with a particular company that started out with introducing cybersecurity services. So, it was just a natural progression from there. Adam, how about yourself?
My background and history is definitely nowhere near as exciting and illustrious as Jason. So I just worked out recently that I've hit about 18 years now in the IT industry. I started straight out of high school, moved to Brisbane. I'm originally from Far North Queensland. I moved to Brisbane, did some studies and got my first job straight off the bat when I was about 18 on a help desk. So I've worked everything from big corporates to really small boutique MSPs to 2018 launching the Southeast Queensland region for ADITS, which was started in Bowen back in 2006. And we've grown pretty rapidly since then, obviously, our head office in Townsville and then starting the Brisbane sort of location. And now we've got a really good presence in Southeast Queensland. And, we've really been focusing on cybersecurity for a long time and trying to keep up with it. And, obviously, I feel like Australia's kind of been pretty far behind the rest of the world for a long period. So trying to get to where we're at now has been a bit of a journey. And I think pretty much MSP's probably struggled along the way as well. Obviously, a massive hot topic these days. We're trying to do things a little bit differently. So that's bit about me and my history and where ADITS has sort of come from. We try and focus more on the GRC side, with a little bit of technical, but
No, fantastic. Thanks for the background of that. Obviously, as we go through this, want to pick your brain a little bit more around how you guys are utilising the CSCAU certifications. But I thought I'd start with Jason to maybe just break it down a little bit more. I know you sort of touched on it. I look at the certifications through the SMB 1001s that you guys provide as a nice sort of stepping stone into getting started, and then obviously maturing your cybersecurity approach for there. How does you've touched on how they came about, but how do you see that moving forward in terms of SMBs getting certified, and also how MSPs can utilize that as part of growing their offerings?
Yeah, I think what Adam spoke about there is on the money. The GRC part, or knowing where your gaps are key, aren't they? So most businesses are not aware that they're actually exposed in a lot of ways because they don't understand cybersecurity, and it has been always a difficult subject to approach with clients. The issue is, and I think it's good the government, I've been banging on for years about doing a slip, slop, slap for cyber, like getting the basics in place, a password manager, strong passphrases, whatever the case may be, MFA, like across all metrics as a second line of defence, and then at least updates when available, and start that early in school. As I always say, we teach kids to brush their teeth and, put a seatbelt on when they get in the car. But, online safety is just as key. My girls had an iPhone in their hand and could intuitively use it before they could speak, so it's they're online before they're probably even hopping in the car sometimes, or actually worrying about brushing any teeth that are coming through, so and I think for business, we just need to make it easy and approachable and simple. And so where the CSCAU comes in, it's taking the greatest hits of all the things with these GRC and cyber sort of specific things, but tailoring it more to a small to medium-sized business so it can be approachable. The Essential 8 is difficult enough for big business here in Australia and government, let alone trying to apply that across small to medium-sized enterprises. It's hard enough for them to get their tax returns put together, let alone anything else. So I think we see this as a little bit of a Trojan horse, and that was the same with CyberAware, is that we do a free health check on the business to then find out where the gaps are. And that opens up opportunities for the MSP to then have a conversation with something in front of someone that they can understand. Look, I filled that sheet in. I said I don't use password managers, so what do you recommend? Oh, well, we say 1Password or LastPass or Bitwarden or whatever the MSP recommends, or in their Microsoft suite or whatever the case may be. It opens up a conversation that the person has done something. My belief in something, if you look at the steering committee that we have, with the CSCAU, we've got the greatest hits of everyone involved in cyber to try and put this together. So it's not just a single thing either. It's actually getting the ASD, ACS, ACER, all those bodies and then all the other people involved in cyber to try and put this together. So not one person's going to solve this. It has to be a collective effort, right? And it is the feedback from people like MSPs and MSSPs that, I know from CyberAware days, we respect our MSP market wholly, and that's how we grew the product so quickly, getting the feedback from the market and actually finding out what do we need, where are you getting roadblocks with clients, how can we build things better and help you more is the key, right? Because in the end of the day, that helps our first line defense, which is business, and forms a good relationship for the MSP. To bolt on something like a health check is not that hard if they've already got rapport with the client. Actually makes that relationship even stronger and gives them something as a guidepost to go along with. So yeah, that's in a snapshot where I see it fits and hopefully where it benefits the likes of Adam and other MSPs and MSSPs.
Yeah, that's a great point, particularly around the sort of guidelines there, because we talk about, I talk to MSPs a lot around adopting some sort of framework, whether that be the Essential 8 as a starting point, and then sort of elevating them from there to NIST or CSF or CIS controls or whatever the case may be. A lot of them are basically guessing and sort of just figuring out what they need and something like this and any other framework is basically giving those checkpoints to go through and say, all right, what can I do, or what should I be doing, right? What is an industry standard that has been developed by industry experts that we can use as guideposts so that SMBs can get going. A lot of times I think SMBs, particularly small business, like you said, don't really have the time to understand cybersecurity, let alone implement it. And that's where MSPs kind of step in and become that advisory or consultancy type angle, where they're the ones providing those services either through GRC or actually through technical controls in the security landscape as well. They don't know what they don't know at the end of the day. I know that's a common term that's used, but it's true. Adam, what do you see? How I know your organisation has adopted this as part of your cybersecurity strategy. How do you see that impacting your business?
I think the other thing too that I just want to quickly touch on earlier is, they don't know what they don't know, 100% true. They don't have the time and the resources. 100% true. But one of the big key factors is funds. They often do not have the funds. And I think there was a study recently where I think the ASD went out and did some survey, and I think it was like the average was like $500 budget for cyber. So the key for us is obviously making the barrier to entry quite low to cyber, but not ticking as many boxes, but covering as many practice areas as possible. And that's probably what I really like the most about SMB 1001 over some other frameworks, is that you have way more coverage in the practice areas than you do certain other frameworks. The other beauty of it too is that it's not just a bunch of technical controls. There's, some of the other frameworks will just throw out, let's just say 8 technical controls, or, if you go NIST, whatever, same sort of deal. The thing I like about this is that it covers the people and the process side of it, which in my opinion is sometimes even higher than the technical. They often say, the weakest link in the security chain is your people. I also think it can be a greater strength and asset, but it won't be unless you train it. And I'm yet to see another framework or a standard that actually addresses that, whereas SMB 1001 does. And quite, early on in the tiers too. I think we're hitting sort of like tier 3, which is their gold sort of thing, where it starts really getting into the nitty-gritty of security awareness training. So that's what I really like. I like the low barrier to entry for them. It's very easy to get them on the journey, even if you go in at a lower tier like a silver, and you tick off some of the really big, like bang for buck, low hanging fruit items. It gets them on the journey, having the conversations. They also get a certificate. And for me, that's quite important, because trying to measure value of cybersecurity for a customer is very hard. Like, you can sit there and demonstrate, yeah, we've done this, we've done that, you now this. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean a great deal to them. They really struggle to correlate what that actually means. But when they have a certificate that they can actually be proud and go, look what we actually did. We actually got this, cyber cert, silver, and it reduces fatigue too. So they've had a bit of a win. They've got the certificate, and now we can prep them for that next part of the journey. All right, where do we go from here? All right, we really need to, depending on the nature of the business, we really need to get you to here as our next step. So it does a lot of things that I really like. It tackles the people and the process side as well as the technology. You can go in at a lower tier, so a lower cost barrier, and then you can do their journey and you can reduce the fatigue. Things like Essential 8, I'm not knocking it. I think it's got its place. It doesn't deal with the people and the process side. It's incredibly difficult to roll out. Incredibly difficult. Like, I'm yet to talk to an MSP that's got it nailed. And even honestly, we struggled with it. Like, it's one of those constant things you've got to throw time and bodies at to try and get right. And they're constantly sort of changing the goalposts a bit too. And, when you're dealing with government, it can be a bit hard at times. But yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits, especially in the MSP market, to looking at this framework seriously.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's why I love having these type of conversations. Different perspectives always provides a unique angle that I may not have thought of before. You touched on the certifications, and from what I understand, there's 5 levels of certifications as part of the SMB 1001.
Well, there's sort of 5 levels in the actual program, and then there's sort of 3 certification levels. So there's sort of a bronze, silver, gold. So you'd start with your sole or independent contractor sort of at the lower levels, and then sort of work your way up and through the levels to get, as Adam said, around level 3, getting into that gold. And I think, as Adam sort of touched on before there, that you've got, it's not quite gamification, but you do need people just by nature want to achieve the next level. If you go gaming, they make the levels harder as you go a bit higher, so you've got something to go for and attain, right? And you need that. And look, if I was going to go look at a contractor and they're both doing the same business and one had a gold standard, I think it could be used for that, and someone's on silver or bronze, as a customer, I'm going to feel a bit more safer going with someone who's gone to gold standard with their cybersecurity in their practice, especially if they're going to be handling my personal identifiable information and other stuff, that this person's actually gone to a level. I think, don't you agree, that's going to be something that, could make a difference. And, I really see over and above all this that a business starts and they have to register for GST and they have to go and get an ABN and they have to do their tax return on a yearly basis or quarterly BAS statements. I see, and this is something that I'm really pushing for, is that a business should make sure they're checking their posture at least on an annual basis, and depending on the size of the business and type of business, more regularly, at least at a quarterly basis. And this could be something they could be checking in on a regular basis. The cost structure, as Adam said, is pretty low. Like your bronze at around $97. I think it's $197 for silver, and then gold, around $497. It's not over the top, on a price point either, like when you say what people are going to spend on cyber. So trying to make it cost effective. And when Home Affairs brings out this health check later this year, our hope and what we're looking to achieve is that the SMB 1001 is the cornerstone for actually that health check, because as Adam has touched on, it is the most thorough, covering all bases, people, process, and everything else that is required for a business. And once this is just automatic, and actually you sometimes need that carrot and stick to make someone do something. If I didn't get a fine, if I didn't put my tax in or whatever, I like a lot of people probably wouldn't even bother, right? But there is consequences of not doing it. Now, there should be a consequence for cyber. We need to give them some sort of driver to actually make them do something. And I think it's as important as anything else in business is that, especially building with the foundations in place, the basics we spoke about, and growing from there should be, before you start a business, you should start with the foundation of cybersecurity being there before you can actually open the door.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's actually a really good point, Jason, because I've seen recently, a lot lately, ASIC now taking a strong stance on this. And there's a court proceedings in the last sort of like 18 months where a company failed to do their director duties by not investing and probably doing cyber at the outset. So, I think that's definitely coming. And then obviously with the Privacy Act reforms coming later this year too, I think we're going to really see that ramp up from the OAIC. So,
yeah, it's interesting with some of those changes, and I think for the most part with small business and even MSPs, there's no regulation. There's no legal liabilities. Well, there's very little legal liabilities at the moment because it's not stated in things like the Privacy Act, and maybe some of those reforms coming down the track will change that a little bit. So obviously the big objection that MSPs get when talking to clients around cybersecurity is, do I really need to do it? Am I big enough? An organization that I need to worry about this type of stuff. So these stats out there suggest, yes, you are. If we look at the ASD's or the ACSC's threat report, annual threat report, SMBs are close to 50% of reported threats each year, and that's been fairly consistent over the years. With the lack of mandating, I've seen insurance be kind of the driver, cybersecurity insurance in particular, be the driver in terms of trying to set a standard through them doing audits and things like that now. Have you seen, Jason, insurance companies adopting the CSCAU standards or the guidelines as part of their insurance policy approaches?
Well, cyber insurance is a really interesting one. That's a whole Pandora's box, I think, that if we sort of go down that path, I think that sort of blows open this whole discussion. So I'll put the sort of that part of it aside just for a sec. But there's a lot of things that need to be improved on that side with cyber insurance. It shouldn't be and really isn't any different to home insurance, right? You should really be getting and using something like this, Elliot, as you sort of touched on, as a basis. And if we do regular check-ins, then we make sure we're okay. If I'm renewing my home and contents insurance every year, if I've changed things to my house, I've added security cameras, deadlocks to doors, things that actually can make my house more secure, I should be able to feed that back to my insurer, and they're going to give me a discount or a premium, right? Because I'm actually got alarms. I've got more security from what I had last year. I should get a discount. Haven't seen that reflected through, but it's very difficult with a cyber attack, right? Like your house, if I left my doors wide open with all that stuff and didn't have my alarm switched on, all that sort of stuff, and got robbed, that's my fault. So the insurer's not going to cover me. Similarly, in the situation, if I said to an insurer, I have all these checks and controls and balances in place, but don't have them switch on. And I like what Adam said before, the box ticking exercise. We don't want that. You want to make sure that if you're saying you're doing something, that you're actually doing it, right? If you're doing regular updates, if you're having these things in place, that it's actually occurring, right? Because most times when you see a cyber attack happen, something's not gone right. And 8 times out of 10, it's usually that the person hasn't got a control switched on, hasn't done an update. There's usually some reason that someone's gone in there, right? So, yeah, the insurer part, this is the awareness piece. We really got to get it out there. We've got to get more awareness about it. It's great that Adam's using it, but we want more Adams. We want everyone basically using this. This should be the cornerstone. And this template and this framework should be used in other countries as well. We should be leading the way in some ways in Australia with these sorts of things and making things easier. My whole thing with anything I've done in business is how do I make it better or easier or more approachable? And cybersecurity is one of the toughest nuts I've had to crack, but it's something that I think we collectively can actually do. And that will make the insurance process and everything else a lot easier if we all have a real understanding of what it actually means, what's the outcome of what we're doing. And it's to make people safer. And I think you need to put it in layperson's terms. You need to be able to explain it technically to a technical person, but you also need to give it the layperson's layover as well. So and that's why I sort of talk slip, slop, slap, or, using other examples in other industries. Your house and your contents and insurance should be that reference point then for cybersecurity, and sort of carry over. We need to give people, it's just like you do this in this part of your life, cybersecurity fits here. It almost is like an insurance policy. So I think it's the change of language and how we direct it to business to give them where it's important and where it sits. And so it's not an impost on their business. It's actually a security or an insurance policy against something bad happening to them or their clients.
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges that MSPs have is a lot of them come from the IT world, from a technical background, and they struggle breaking it down into sort of simple terms and speak the language that's appropriate to the audience you're trying to deliver that to, which is one of the things that we try to educate here at PAC as well, particularly through the academy team, in learning how to sort of talk risk to those particular people. And I love that you use the house analogy because I use that all the time. I think, that is something that anyone, or almost anyone, can sort of relate to. So whoever it is, whether you're speaking to the board, the business owner, the technical controller as part of that, we need to make sure that we're refining our language to those particular audiences. Adam, how have you used the CSCAU certifications with your clients? And in comparison to something like the Essential 8, which is obviously marketed very well by the government, how does that compare, and have they taken that on board?
Yeah, it's a good question. And obviously, the SMB 1001 is still quite new. We only kind of came across it earlier this year, sort of like January, February of this year. So we've kind of had to pivot rather quickly. Obviously, we were doing mostly Essential 8 framework, maturity level 1. So I'll be honest with you, customers, whether it's the Essential 8 or SMB 1001, they're trusting you. So if we go in there and say, hey, look, this is actually come out on the market, we think it's way better, offers you this much more coverage, addresses these particular things that you're not currently doing, even though you might be M1 in Essential 8. The changeover is a business conversation, really. And I like what you said before, just about, MSPs, where they approach this and they use cyber insurance as a driver. I don't think I've ever had to use cyber insurance as a driver. It's a business conversation and it's a risk-based conversation. So we've never had to do that. Cyber insurance comes off the back of that, usually down the track, once we start looking at a framework and going, all right, now let's start talking, cyber insurance. So, yeah, look, it's. I'll be honest, it's been it's kind of like turning the Titanic a bit because we've had so many customers adopt that E8, but we're just chipping away at it one by one and starting to move them across. So we've got a number sort of in the works at the moment, and we'll probably see over the next maybe 6 months we'll start getting quite a few certifications pushed out. Yeah,
great. The I think the great thing about this particular guideline framework certification, however you want to reference it, is I'm not going to badmouth the Essential 8 too much. That's a topic for another day. But obviously, Essential 8 is 8 items, and the most basic items that every organisation should be doing. As you've both kind of mentioned, it is a bit tricky for the most part, and it is not mandated except for government and critical infrastructure across Australia. Where this is where we have a conversation around pivoting to another framework, whether that be ISOs or CIS controls is the one that we've selected here at PAX 8, only because there's several missing items that I think that are missing from the Essential 8, such as security awareness training, right? The human firewall is one of the big things, the biggest risk, but they could be also your biggest defense against cybercrime, right? If they're not doing the wrong things and clicking on the wrong things in the first place, all of the other items that follow suit may become not required to a degree anyway. Where I like where the CSCAU SMB 1001, bit of a mouthful there, comes into place. I think it fits perfectly in the middle of that, where it gives you a sort of a bit more guidance and expands beyond the Essential 8, but maybe is not as in-depth as the CIS controls for the most part. And as you mentioned, Adam, it also touches on the people and process, which the CIS controls doesn't do. It's a technical control framework for the most part off the back of NIST. So what I would like to understand, because the certification is fairly new to me, is how MSPs would potentially use this. Is this a certification that they can use as implementers of a cybersecurity strategy, and then third-party auditors from the CSCAU come in to audit that and then provide the certifications? How does that work, or is the MSP involved as part of that auditing process as well to deliver the certification?
Oh, sorry, was that Adam or me?
Either. It was an open question.
I'd actually honestly be interested to hear Adam's, because this is something we're talking about in the background. So I'd like to hear the actual understanding of it rather than me sort of go on top, if that's okay.
So the way I understand it is obviously your 3 tiers, your bronze, silver, gold is all self-attestation.
Uh-huh.
So we actually use a platform where we go in and actually do the assessment based on those 3 tiers.
Uh-huh.
So there's all the questions. We go through and interview the business, and we document all the questions, the answers. We provide evidence, supporting evidence, and we run a risk report. And then from that, we get the gaps. So from the gaps, we need to do this, this, and this. Once that's all done and we're happy with that, then we actually put forward a self-attestation for the certificate. We haven't had to do the high tiers, so 4 and 5 at the moment, which are not self-attestation, as I believe, Jason. They actually do go to the CSCAU CAB, I think, for review and approval. And I do believe there's some type of audit from that perspective. So that's probably something we're going to probably look at in the next probably 6 months is those higher end tiers. But the bronze to gold is self-attestation. We use the platform for that to actually control, document evidence, and actually show proof that we have actually made those changes, like whatever the gaps are, and provide the evidence for it.
Yeah, that's pretty much on the money, and this is a bit of a moving feast, I think, for us at the moment to actually make sure this is right. And this is why you have to go to market. Any product, solution, or service I've ever made in the past, actually, the market tells you what is right or what's wrong, but that's pretty much in a nutshell. I mean, obviously, the optimal position for businesses is to get them to gold, right? So that's where you want to take a business to, which is, as we've sort of spoken about, people, process, technology is being addressed then, right, once you're getting into that standard. So from a cyber risk management program being in place at that point, and then they can defend and respond and recover, which is the ultimate goal of what we want to get to, sort of in that part. But you have to start somewhere, right? So we need this foundational stuff in place. And this is where we're actually just applying, and CSCAU sort of part of it. There's a grant for small business specifically that is to be lodged by this Friday, which is more of a one-on-one sort of phone support. But what will underpin that is exactly this framework. The questionnaires and the things in place here is where we need to start getting people in the process of actually getting these things done, right? So And for MSPs, I just think, as Adam's already demonstrated, it's a great tool just to get both of you on the same page. It's often difficult as an MSP to go to a business and say, you need to do these things. And they'll often be, well, why, or what's the cost, or are you just trying to make money out of me, or something like that. I think, and I don't know if Adam's found this yet, but a lot of people say that having this framework sort of gives them, well, it's not me saying it. This is a framework which is done by the CSCAU or the SMB 1001 is a separate thing that if you follow that, that's something that's a good framework and a good guidepost. So that's telling it, and now I can help you to actually fill those gaps. So then it's not like Adam's trying to sell me something, which, sometimes people do. It's just customers, human nature. Oh, you just want me to do this because you're going to make money out of it, right? Because you're selling me a product or a service. When you have something on the side like this, and it's like a tax agent can say that too. Actually, I don't make the rules. The ATO does. I just want to make sure that you're compliant, and these are the things you can claim for, and these are the things you can't. So you need to buy Xero. You need to pay for our services. You need to get a bookkeeper. You need to have these things in place to be compliant and make sure you're not breaking the law, right? These are the laws. It's sort of, and do you find that, I'll be interested, as I said, this is more for exploratory for us, that gives you that firewall almost, or that break between you actually just asking for money and actually saying it's because of this.
Yeah, you're spot on. And I reckon that's probably why the Essential 8 has had the uptake that it's had, because a lot of MSPs are going back to their customers going, well, this is what the government recommends as the best mitigation strategy. So you're 100% right. Having a framework, and look, we're not out there to make money, for doing this. It is about protecting people. So having that framework to go, look, here's actually the guidelines of what we need to do. This is from the CSCAU. It helps tremendously. And I just want to touch on another thing too, because a lot of people that I've spoken to, not a lot, but a couple of people that I've spoken to when talking about those 3 tiers and the self-attestation, they're very quick to respond with, oh, you're marking your own homework. And then my response to them is, well, what are you doing with your Essential 8? How are you marking that? Because they're not getting an IRAP assessor out at, 20 grand a pop to do it. So they're not even marking it at all, to be honest. So my critique to that is, at least we've got it documented in a platform and we're hand on heart saying we believe that they've met this certification criteria. So I just wanted to address that, because that's
a good point, Adam. That's a great point. Yeah, because, and that's the thing is that even when I do my tax return, even if my accountant does it, I've got to sign off on that, and I've got to say that I back that that's actually all true and correct, everything that I've put in there. So yes, you have to self-assess, but have I actually got these things? Do I have a password manager in place? Do I do training? Do I do training? Do all my staff do training? I mean, I could fluff it and say, yeah, I do and I don't, but then that's at risk to me. That's me bullshitting. And then, like, if you did get an audit, from the tax department or anything else, you're going to be in trouble for that. Yeah, or you're just basically opening up a hole. What's the benefit of you lying to basically do that? You're lying to yourself, and you're going to cost yourself something in the future. So there is no benefit from actually lying on that case. And that, I agree with Adam. That's part of this here, right? We can't rely on government to drive everything, but I think we can use it as a tool to actually make sure that people will be more compliant and more complicit with what they're doing and take it more seriously.
The other really good thing about the self-attestation too is that your client's director actually needs to sign off on it. So if you're really struggling to actually have the conversation with your customer at a director level, this is a great way to start talking to them about actual business risk and stuff like that.
Director's responsibility.
Sign off on it. And I know we get gatekeeped a lot, usually operationally, and we have to report to like a practice manager or something like that that's in the operations. But this is a really good way to actually get direct access to a director level or a C-suite level.
Yeah, I like that you've got those tiers where, once you get to the tier 4 and 5, it does require a third-party auditor. And I understand the objections to that. There's potentially a bit of bias from the MSP who are attesting to those particular frameworks, where they might look at something and say, oh, yeah, we're doing that, but haven't actually physically gone and checked that to ensure that password manager is indeed installed and set up and configured correctly. So it's always those, I think, Jason, you mentioned it before, it's one of those things where it's a balance of the market, right? There's a cost involved, obviously. Some security, for the most part, is better than no security. So self-assessing to a degree will get you there. And then if you want that higher tier, it is available, and that's where you would potentially bring in those third-party assessors and auditors to do that fact check and make sure that the MSP is doing their job. You kind of mentioned something before, but from a MSP side of things, Adam, do you have some sort of certification or badge that says you are an approved CSCAU provider or something like that? Or is the certifications purely on the SMB side?
No, we don't. So the certifications are issued through, I think it's Cyber Cert.
Yep.
Am I right in that, Jason? Yeah. So it's I think, they're an independent body, or like they're well, something like that. Yeah. So we don't issue the certifications. It's Cyber Cert that does it. So all we do is actually help get them to that level and say, we believe you've met the criteria. Here's your actual report of what the gap analysis was. Here's the reports when we've done the remediation. We think you've done it. We'll sign off on our part. They sign off on their part, and then it goes to CyberCert to issue that actual certification. I'm not actually aware of any type of affiliation thing where we're like an SMB 1001 approved provider. I don't know if that's something CSCAU does. I'm not overly aware of that.
Okay. The reason why I asked that, I think I see there's a potential there to weed out some of the cowboys in the industry. There's way too many for my liking.
No.
Anyone can call themselves a cybersecurity provider these days.
Yep.
And that does away with what the good guys like yourself at ADITS are doing, right? Where it's you're thinking about the client first. You want to add that level of security to the organizations. Yes, you might make a little bit of money on top, but that's not the primary goal. It's actually securing the client itself. So in the sort of same vein as the chartered accountants and CPA are for the accountants, I think, Jason, this might be an opportunity where you can get approved MSPs or accredited MSPs, some sort of badge that can be then utilized and marketed to say, all right, if you're an SMB looking for a certified cybersecurity provider, look for this badge, right? Look for these type of MSPs that have this sort of accreditation or and just to hold them accountable for the most part.
Yeah, it's something we want to do, I think, and this is what I think why they asked me to be the independent chair in the very first place is because my whole thing is to actually do that. I think if you're doing cybersecurity and you really care, like it sounds like Adam does and like I do, right? You do it as a passion. I think it's almost like being a doctor or a nurse or something like that, right? You actually do want to help people, honestly. That's why you get into and the money isn't as great as what people think it is compared to the stress and everything else that you have to deal with to actually do the job, right? And I think that gets underplayed. Most of us, the good people that are in the industry, the real people, you're not making as much money as people think you are. You got a shit ton more stress than people actually understand. And when you're trying to do it from this sort of place, like I'm doing it, I've thrown my own money at all the stuff I do, right? So it's not like I'm not going and getting handouts or doing anything like that. I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is with all the businesses that I've done because I believe so strongly in this, and I'd actually rather die or go broke actually trying to solve this problem than to just let it fizzle out or just go, oh, well, it's just what it is and we just get on with it. So Elliot, 100% agree. If we can find, and that's why I was looking at the accreditation stuff. When I was at Cyber, we were looking at doing an accreditation piece, for cyber professionals and stuff like that. I mean, obviously that'd be grandfathered for people already in the industry and, that sort of thing. But as you said, accountants have to go through certain processes, financial services people go through processes. I wouldn't go get someone building my house unless they're a master builder or, go use a plumber or someone to do my electrical work at my house unless they were qualified. But there's a lot of people that are going and doing work or claiming to be cyber professionals that, far from it, right? And, doing it because they can see a dollar in it and they can go and just partner and resell stuff and then say we've done the right thing. And I've seen a lot of horror stories on the back end of that. So, yes, it is a key thing and something that I'm looking to help solve with a whole group of other people as well. And obviously speaking quite regularly to government about that in particular.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about with the stress. Isn't CISOs are the easiest job on the market, isn't it? So I've heard.
Yeah, a lot of CISOs are my best mates, and they've got grey hair than me, or losing it quite rapidly. But no, some of the greatest people, and a CISO is a very undervalued role, and I wouldn't take it for anything because you can get it right a million times, you get it wrong once, and you got no job, and it's very hard to get another job after it. It's a very thankless role. But these are the sorts of things we need to put these sort of mechanisms in place to support everyone in the industry. Make Adam's job easier, make the client's job easier, make everyone get on the same page and understand what the rules of engagement are and what they need to be doing to keep themselves safe, right? It's just very confusing at the moment. No one knows what to do. Nothing's perfect, but we will keep evolving these regulations and the things that we're doing around the CSCAU to move with a very quick moving market. It isn't a just one size fits all. It's not like accounting where, Dutch merchants back in the 1500s set up, debits and credits, source and use of funds, and we're still using it today. That's not cybersecurity. It's an ever-changing, ever-evolving thing. You see what generative AI has done in the last 18 months. So it has to be a group of people looking to get a set of standards that actually are flexible enough but rigorous enough that they actually stay fairly strong to the core, and they just adjust accordingly as we sort of go along there to, cover major, sort of changes. But, we have to have some sort of framework and base work in place to actually work from. And, my hope is that Home Affairs, when later this year they announce that there is a set of a questionnaire for business that they're going to use, that it is the SMB 1001 that they choose.
Yeah, fantastic. I guess that sort of leads into my final question. I hadn't heard about this until recently, admittedly. So maybe I'm not looking in the right place. But what are you doing to broadcast this and sort of market it and make it more something that's associated that SMBs can look at and MSPs even can sort of adopt it moving forward? Is there any sort of strategy?
It's the killer, yeah. And it's something that I've busted my brain with for, cyberware when we started, I think, and off the top of my head, I think we've got about 450 MSPs and MSSPs in Australia that were actually using the platform or white labeling, the cyberware platform. So you wouldn't know that, though, because obviously, as I said, unless you dug really deep in the DNS, you're not going to find that cyberware is the white label solution for that. And that's how we want it. We want the MSP and MSSPs to be the hero. We want to sit behind that. And I think with the CSCAU, we want the same sort of thing, whether it's with Home Affairs. It's not to take that sort of hero placement of it, but I think, and Adam would agree, this, and Ella, you too, like the killer of all business, the hardest part is actually sales and marketing. How do you get known? How do you get seen in the market? And with the attention span of a gnat that most people have these days, you get forgotten about very quickly because something new, it's you used to be just television, newspapers, billboards, right? Now with social media and all the other mechanisms that are out there, it's very confusing. So, even to get a campaign out like the government are doing, the new one with passwords and MFA and updates at the moment, those ads come on TV, they're not grabbing anyone's attention. So you almost have to do shock value to get people's attention or make it shareable viral content to actually get seen, and that's not what we're cool and good at doing in cyber, so we sort of need to sort of take a leaf out of the book, but you're doing a serious subject, and how fine line do you balance that? The New Zealanders, I always speak about their campaign with some of their cyber ads were fantastic. If you haven't seen them, you've got to check them out. But there's like a scene where the son's watching these two people have sex on the internet, and they actually turn up the front door with the mum answering the door. They're both naked. This couple saying, "Oh, is Johnny here?" Like sort of thing, like bringing the reality of online, into reality. But yeah, it cuts through, that's for sure. And the New Zealanders very, very good at doing that sort of stuff. But yeah, we to get seen and to get heard, doing things like this. Appreciate Elliot at the time, and Adam, thanks for sort of backing us up. The stuff that you said is exactly why we want to do what we're doing, is to get in the market. It's not going to make us rich by any means. I'm not making a red cent out of it, but it's actually because I care about it and give a shit that I actually want to make sure that we get something done. This is the best thing I've seen in a long time to actually solve a problem that's been hanging out in the market for a long time. So I'm open to anyone watching this come back to us and say, how can we promote it better? That's not my area of expertise. I do my best with my pissy little LinkedIn posts and stuff to try and get it out there. And even talking to you today, you probably never heard of cyberware, or maybe not even 6 Clicks or other stuff I've been involved in either. I think one of the things, and that's why with MurFin, why we set it up, was to try and get the voice of people out there. So we actually represent a lot of companies to say, we'll get you out in the market, we'll do that stuff for you, because in cyber we're not good at talking to market. Well, we're quite comfortable doing it for other people. So we do have a lot of clients we help, with their PR campaigns to get seen in major publications, to, get their message out and actually say, what is a destination postcard, or how does this fit with the strategy, and how can we help you along on that journey, So we're trying our best, but any help that anyone watching this can give us any tips or clues or assistance or wants to get involved, that's where it starts. The momentum of Adam then saying to other MSPs he knows or Elliot sharing these sort of content gets the word out there. And look, ideally, if Home Affairs jumped on it and said, yes, we want to use this as our framework, we think this is a really good one, which if they're smart, hopefully that's what they do, then we get that in the market that way, and then we can say it's government-backed. Once you say that, that gives you a lot more credence in the market. The government, Home Affairs have said this is what it needs to be used, and as Adam said before with the Essential 8, people then go, okay, well, if the government recommends it, I better do it, because we're a very compliant, complicit market here in Australia. That would be a good driver for it, and I think that would make a big difference.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I love what I'm hearing. I love what you guys are doing. Like I said, I think it's a better fit in some regards in the Essential 8 and CIS. It sort of nicely fits in the middle and gives MSPs options to sort of evolve the strategy rather than try to go with one set of rules. Yeah, I'll take that as your final thoughts. Adam, final thoughts from you. Should MSPs be looking at the CSCAU as a guiding principle?
Absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt, I think it's the best standard that's come around for a very long time. I think it'll be here to stay. We just need to get it adopted. If you are an MSP, definitely look into it. There's some good platforms out there that have the SMB standard within it, so you can do your assessments and stuff like that. Look around, you'll find them. But yeah, highly recommend.
Fantastic. Well, with that, we've gone way over time. So again, I appreciate you both jumping on and sharing. Yeah. I appreciate you both jumping on and sharing your thoughts. I think this is going to be fantastic for MSPs to start looking into and potentially adopting. Obviously, if they want to learn a little bit more, they can go to the CSCAU website and then potentially get in touch with someone from there, or reach out to you directly, I assume.
Go to me directly, wherever. Happy to help, but yeah, hit the website. It's got all the information on there, the cscau.com.au, and then get in contact with us. Any questions, let us know. But hopefully, Adam did a really good job of covering it off. As I said, it's people like him that get it, that make a difference. It's not about what we say; it's about how it actually works in the market. And seeing it and hearing from Adam is exactly why we're doing it. Because we want to make it easier, and he's making a difference, and he's using it as a tool, but a good tool that hopefully helps everyone.
Thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate time again. Have a great day, and I'm sure we'll speak soon.
We will.
No worries. Thanks mate. Thanks Jason.